Hi, I'm Luke Cleary at ABC 10, and I wanted to share a behind the scenes look at a story that we reported this Memorial Day. A family in Woodland has been waiting for 7 decades for the return of their loved one who was killed in the Korean War. This story is a really rare find. I've never reported anything like this in my career, and it was very special to me. I just wanted to share the behind the scenes. Quickly, we got a press release from the Defense POW/MIA Accounting Agency that said that they identified remains of a soldier who fought in the Korean War who was from Woodland. And then we posted that on our social media. And the sister of this soldier actually reached out to us in a comment saying, "That's my brother. And we were so happy to bring him home." So watch this with me.
It was December 1950. One of the Korean War's most infamous battles took place at the Chosum Reservoir among the frozen mountains of North Korea. Chinese troops surrounded American forces, including 17-year-old Army Corporal Albert Estrada of Woodland. He never came home.
So just a few quick words about the Chosum Reservoir battle. Again, one of the most infamous battles in the Korean War. It was extremely cold, at times temperatures reaching minus 30 degrees. You may have seen some of that archive footage that we pulled from the Department of Defense, and it just shows you how awful those conditions were. So not only did the soldiers, the U.S. soldiers, Army, and Marines have to contend with that brutal weather, they were also vastly outnumbered by the Chinese soldiers. I saw a number something like 30,000 U.S. and UN command troops against around 120,000 Chinese. Just gives you an idea of the odds that they were facing. Let's listen to Ruth Tucker here now.
He was just a really good brother. He looked after us.
And for more than 70 years, his sister, Ruth Tucker, never stopped wondering what happened, never stopped praying.
Did you pray for his return?
Oh, all the time, all the time. And my mom lit a candle, a votive candle, and kept it burning for him.
Her mother got a telegram.
I couldn't help thinking as we were interviewing Ruth about how surreal that must have felt. You know, in those days, the information that you would get from the front lines would be vague or incomplete at best. It just was, part of the times, particularly when you're fighting a war that's a world away. But as Ruth mentioned there, her mother didn't really speak or read English well. And so she received this telegram from the military saying that her son was missing in action. And she really didn't understand what that meant. She had to wait for her daughters to come home to explain it. So imagine that, a young child, Ruth was just 11 years old at the time, having to explain to her mother that their 17-year-old brother was missing in action.
I almost know it by heart. And the telegram just said he was reported missing in action. And we will continue to look for him, and you will be notified.
3 years later, the Army told them Albert was presumed dead. And so began several more decades of waiting until...
Freeze it! Oh!
I think it's worth lingering on that for a moment. What an unusual moment that was. It was a byproduct of President Trump's summit with North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un. You may recall the two of them were sparring a bit back and forth over Twitter, social media, saber rattling. And yet the two of them managed to come together and hammer out this deal to bring home these 55 boxes of remains. I actually, just to let you in on my own background, I lived in Korea for 9 years, working at the Korean broadcasting system in radio and TV, and covered the TrumpKim Summit. It was, again, just completely surreal for South Korean people in particular to watch as a US president and a North Korean dictator came together. It was something, I think, for many people that just believed would never happen. because of the animosity between the two countries. And yet they did, in fact, come together, and something good came out of it. These 55 boxes were returned, and the DPAA is using DNA analysis to go through them and connecting families with the remains of their loved ones. So let's continue.
In 2018, a diplomatic breakthrough. North Korea returned 55 boxes of remains to the United States.
Did you believe that Albert might be among those boxes?
I did. I thought, okay, they're going to find him.
But the wait continued. Another 7 years until a call from the Department of Defense.
And what was that moment like for you?
When they called, he said, "Are you sitting down?" "Yes." "Are you alone?" "Yes." And I knew what he was going to say. He said, "I have good news for you." He said, "We have found your brother's remains and we have identified him through DNA." And I was just shaking and started crying. And he said,
honestly, watching that back again, I just get emotional. Going into the interview, I worked together with photojournalist Chris Costello to kind of come up with a plan. I wrote out the questions in sort of an order, but talked through it with Chris, because we knew that we really wanted to get to what was that moment like when the military called you and told you that they had positively identified your brother. I asked that question, not sure how she would respond, and it was, to me, just beautiful. I mean, the way that she tells the story and the emotion behind it, there's just 70 years of longing behind that response, and it really moved me.
said, "We're going to bring him home." And it was just like words I never thought I'd hear.
Next month, Albert's remains will return to Woodland. His family will bury him at the cemetery next to his mother. A prayer answered, and one of America's sons finally comes home.
Mom waited and waited all those years, and thank goodness, I do believe that they're together, so that helps us.
So that's the story. In researching this, I learned that there's something like just below 7,500 still missing soldiers from the Korean War era that have yet to be returned. The DPAA is slowly working through those boxes that they received from North Korea, but it is a painstaking process. And so these matches are few and far between, not to mention because so much time has passed, the relatives of the soldiers who were lost in that war are getting older and older. Ruth, in particular, she's in her mid-80s now, and she was just 11 when her brother Albert went off to war. So I just want to thank Ruth for letting us in and sharing her story. We could not have done this without her openness. But I also feel like she was really proud to share this story of her brother and to talk about him and his sacrifice. One thing I asked her if she could say something to him today, if he were here right now, she said simply to let him know how many nieces and nephews that he has now, more than 100. It's a really big family, and a lot of them will be there at the burial in June with those military honors. So I expect that this will be a really big event for not just Ruth and the broader Estrada family, but for the whole community of Woodland. So we'll plan on being there and covering it. Thank you so much for watching this video. We hope to do more of these behind the scenes type videos on some of our coverage. But please let us know what you think, share your comments, and we'll see you again next time.